Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie, host and head bookologist here at the Get Literate podcast. I'm a book-loving, notebook-hoarding reader and writer on a mission to change lives one book and one notebook at a time. On this podcast, we explore the power of bookology and leading literate lives. We talk all things books and reading and notebooks and writing, mixed in with mindful practices and creativity to create lives we love. You can expect regular weekly episodes focused on 3 books you need to know about on a bookish theme and how to bring those themes to life in our actual lives too. You can also expect author interviews, notebooking inspiration, and topics to help us grow through what we go through and take inspired action to make our lives better. So grab a notebook and your TBR list and let's get literate. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Get Literate podcast. Stephanie here with a quick introduction to today's guest. I've said this before, and I will likely keep saying it over and over as the podcast progresses, but this podcast has connected me with so many books, authors, and bookish people that I wouldn't otherwise have been able to get to know and connect with, and for that, I'm incredibly grateful. Today's guest is the perfect example. Back in episode 93, I chatted with Emily Winslow. She is a novelist with multiple books, but she was on the podcast specifically to talk about her new nonfiction book called Time to Write. We had a wonderful conversation about all things writing and the writing process, and she even sparked a little something for me. I actually joined National Novel Writing Month because of our conversation and started a really messy first draft of a middle grade novel. Well, one of her students reached out to me to say that she enjoyed the podcast and that she had something she thought I would like, a planner for writers. Another notebook to help me with my writing life? Yes, please. Dr. Nicole Janz is a writing coach on a mission to help book lovers and writers to establish a creative practice that gives them joy. What better goal to help us kick off 2024 with a year of writing together? Nicole, welcome to the Get Literate podcast. I am so excited to talk with you today.
Hi, welcome. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, I am excited to talk about all things writing and writing planners and everything, to kick off a wonderful 2024. But why don't we start with you and your story? How did you get to be a writing coach who decided that the world needs a writing planner? And it does, by the way. But how did you get here?
Thank you. Yes. So I'm a writer's coach. That means if you're an author or an entrepreneur or just a writer of any kind and you are stuck with your book or articles, then usually I come in and help you unblock and then create the strategy that you need and a space for you to finish that thing that you want to finish. And sometimes people just want to kickstart and don't know how to go about it. So there's this sort of what I do, and I came into it sort of through the back door. I'm a trained journalist and an academic. I used to be an academic, and there was a time in my life when I had burnout. So I commuted, I had young children, and the academic system can be quite tough, pressure to publish all the time. And I had burnout, and I started looking for other things to do that are wholesome and can help me get out of it. And one of those things was doing writing retreats with other people on Zoom. So we would just, as a community, meet, set a goal and write. And it just gave me so much peace and feeling connected. And the interesting thing is that I thought, oh, well, maybe I'll be a writing retreat organizer. But I realized that actually the moments during the breaks or just at the beginning and end were more exciting and interesting for me, because people would then come to me and say, oh, you know what, I've been blocked with this, or I can't touch this because I'm going to cry if I have to open this document. And somehow through these conversations, I realized my genius zone is actually talking to writers almost like a therapist,
Mhm.
to get them out of that fear, like the paralysis that we sometimes have, where you feel like, I cannot possibly open this document and start typing. And so then I put out the word and said, well, is anyone interested in coaching? And that is now my new business. I'm not an academic anymore. I quit that, to just, have a healthy and more empowered life with people that I really choose and love to work with. And yeah, so I'm coaching writers, and one-on-one and in groups, but not everyone can afford writing coaching. And also, I cannot be everywhere at the same time. So I started collecting little nuggets that seem to work for everyone and try to put it into a book. And that's how the right habit planner came about. I will say it actually was a bit of a failure at first. So I'm happy to admit it. Well, semi-happy, but I meant to write it as a self-help book for writers.
Okay.
So it was called The Right Habit, the method to write productively, da da da. And I was halfway through the book and I kept getting stuck and blocked, and I didn't know what was wrong until I realized that I'm just giving people this bloated, long-winded, deep psychological explanation of why they are blocked, rather than the thing they really need, which is a prompt to take pen and paper, open their journal, and just start writing. So I ditched the whole thing. It still lives on my computer somewhere. It's sleeping. That's what I'm saying, right? And I turned it into a planner that's visually appealing. And the only goal of the planner is take pen and paper, fill it in, and start writing and experience writing flow, because you are already, by the second you're opening the planner, you are already doing it. Just like fast tracking it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it sounds like, I love thinking about how people move forward in whatever their journey is, right? And that everything happens for a reason. And it sounds like you needed to start writing that book in order to understand that, sure, another book would be helpful, but would really help writers is that action. And it is so hard, I know from experience, to put pen to paper or pencil to paper. You have so many feelings of, do I have enough time? Is it going to be good enough? Is anybody going to want to read it? That often stops us from even thinking about what a project or something might be. And your planner is inviting in a way where you mentioned it's appealing. It is, I'd say appealing, but I'd also say a relaxing inviting, right? It's not overwhelming. It's an invitation to really think about, what will your goals be? What is the roadmap? What are the blocks you might come over and overcome? And I appreciate that, because it did put pencil to paper, which is the very first step. And then it supports you along the way, whether it's yearly or quarterly or monthly or daily. But I think I got ahead of myself a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about the planner? I've been using it so that I could give everyone some firsthand information. But can you give an overview of how you designed it to help someone who wants to have a goal to write more?
Yeah, absolutely. It's for everyone who feels like, I can't possibly find the time to write. And it doesn't have to be a book. It could just be writing something small or just journaling, right? Evening reflection. Or people who think, I wish I could write consistently, but I only ever do it once in a while. And it would make me so happy if I could do it more. Or, if you people keep setting overly ambitious goals, they have this idea in their head that this is how the writing life has to look like, following, famous people who, whatever they are doing. And that can really bring you down. And the planner was meant to be quite open, to help anyone to get into the habit of making space for writing in their life at the very minimum, right? Yes, it could be getting into the habit of better goal setting, reflecting more, optimizing your flow if you are more a professional author or someone who is writing short stories. But really, anyone who wants to write daily but finds it so hard to put in the time and be in the right mind space, that's what it's made for. And when you open it, there's a lot of white space. There are, of course, prompts and little boxes and things, but it's meant to be, inviting you to take pen and paper and just, oh, I'll fill in this, I'll fill in that. Oh, that feels good. I'll keep going. Let's turn the page. That's sort of the idea.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I really liked about it was exactly what you just said, is that it is for all sorts of writing goals. Because I know in my community of listeners, there are many of us who our goal is to just commit to putting pencil to paper every day for our own personal notebooks. We don't have any intentions of sharing it with the wider world, but we know that writing makes us feel good and feel better, and we want it part of our daily lives. Then there's also a group of people who do want a little bit more. They're working on memoirs. They are writing blog posts for their professional lives, or they have dreams way in the back of writing a book or a children's book. And this planner meets the needs of all of those people, no matter what their goal is. And that's a tall task to be able to meet the needs of that range of people. So kudos for you for to making it so open and inviting, no matter what your goal is, to bring more writing into your days.
Thank you. I love that you see it that way, because everyone, when you're putting out a book or a journal, you know, a lot of people talk about you need to find a niche. You need to make it really small. It needs to be very clear. I don't know, it's for women at this age wanting to experience and achieve X or something like that.
Yeah.
But what I've noticed with the clients that I have, they are all over the place. And I do have a few clients who are really just writing for healing. And I do a lot of my own writing for healing. I wrote myself out of burnout. I'm writing myself out of difficulties with relationships. And just, it's my deepest belief. And I'm putting my hand on my chest right now because this is where I feel it. If you can have space for writing and just creativity in whichever form, if you can have that space, your life is going to be better. The only thing is the world around you is not made for you to have that space. You know, the world is keeping you busy, distracting you, and
Yes.
telling you, conditioning you into thinking all the things you are supposed to do, and, you know, then put family on top and, you know, whatever. And so just that space for you to reconnect with yourself, and it might get published, it might never get published, but that space is going to keep you whole and keep you connect to yourself. And if the planner does that for just one person, I'm blessed and happy.
Yeah. So for those that haven't seen the planner yet, and they can't envision what it looks like, I would love to start with the challenge that you just articulated, that I think just about all of us face, which is, how do you make space for this kind of writing, this kind of creativity, when you don't think you have it and the world is reminding you that you don't have it? How do we begin there before we even get to all of the goodness in the planner? How do we make that time for ourselves?
Yeah. I think it starts with a deep inner desire that you want this, and making space for hearing that, because often we don't even hear that, and then 5 weeks are gone and we feel like, hey, I've not written in my journal. Why haven't I done that? And because you're so disconnected. So the planner starts with a future self vision. It's very gentle. It's asking you, where do you want to be, let's say, a year from now? You know, who are you? What does writing look like for you? Is there something that you've published? Is there something that, a skill that you would love to have, or people that you want to connect with, a community like yours where you are going to be feeling at home? And so it's this very gentle connection as you start the new year. Well, let's imagine December of 2024. How would I like to feel? How would I have liked to have taken that path throughout the year, and writing to be part of it? And this is sort of the core. This is what I start with every client when they coach with me. Tell me about your future self vision and your big dream, and how would that look like? Because then you start the new year with a vision, and hopefully a smile on your face, and like a bubbly feeling somewhere in your body. And that is the first step to then turn the pages and think about, okay, it's Monday morning. How do I plan my week to make it happen? But I think you do need that deep connection first.
Yes, you need that why, right? That
Exactly.
purpose to find the time or make the time, because something typically has to go, right? Whether that's something, how do I want to say it? Whether it's something like scrolling on our phone that may be an easier choice to stop doing, or something big, like what are you going to let go of? What are you not going to do in order to make this kind of writing happen for you, which, by the way, you just said you wanted. So I really like how you start with the why. I also like what comes before the why, which is the very first page, which is a creativity contract. I loved that. It's very simple, but what a powerful statement to write your name, to sign it, and to date it, and to give yourself that permission and that accountability. I would love for you to talk about why you feel starting a planner with a contract like that for yourself is so important, because it really made me stop and think, which I loved.
Yeah. You know, I learned that it was very powerful when I did The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, the 12-step program
Yes.
that many people who get stuck in their life one way or another, they find their way to that book. And she also had a contract and a commitment at the start, because it is very hard. It's easy to say in the beginning of the new year, oh yeah, I love writing, I'm going to write a book, but it's so much harder to keep returning to that, right?
Sure
And
is.
so just exactly, and writing down a commitment. I'm committed to my writing. I prioritize my projects. In a year from now, my future self will be proud of me because I have written as much as I could with what I had. I'm ready for writing flow. It's very tailored for writers, but in the planner, right? But for Julia Cameron, she did the same thing, and she made me really pause for a moment. Do I want to go into this? Am I ready? And the moment I signed it, that first step on the big ladder of being a writer, that teeny tiny step was done. And it was so easy and it was joyful. It was like, yes, and that's why I put a very short version specifically for writing at the very beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. I loved that. It's just a signal to yourself that you can do it and you deserve to do it. And then, by the way, here's how, which comes next in the planner. So if we look at the planner, or actually I'm looking at it, we're talking about it, so listeners are going to have to imagine it. It has such a natural, intuitive flow to it. As you mentioned, you first think about kind of reflecting and putting a vision into your mind of what you want that future self to look like. But then you have these sections that are clear and inviting. They're not overwhelming at all, to think about, well, okay, if that's your future self, what might those bigger annual goals be? And then how do we break them down into quarterly goals? And then what about monthly? And how do we reflect? And then even all the way down to some weekly writing slots where you take us from these bigger goals that we might have, but then page by page by page, you show us how we could then tailor our week around it to actually accomplish that. And as someone who really appreciates that bigger picture, or someone who needs that level of support, I'll be more honest rather than sugarcoating. I'm type A. I need you to tell me what to do and how to do it. The flow of this really worked for me. I liked thinking about the priorities, about the wins, the things that I'm going to stop, the things that I'm going to start, the things that I'm going to continue. You just have so many nuggets here that even though this planner is focused on writing, I found that in the couple of weeks that I had been trying it, it just made life better too. Are your clients, do you hear that kind of organizing that aspect of your writing life, which is important to you, has this ripple effect in your actual life?
Yeah, 100%. And thank you so much for saying that. That really warms my heart. And it goes back to what I keep thinking, that when you have creativity in your life and you have a system and habits to support that, that's going to spill over into everything. You know, I've seen that for myself and for my clients, spilling into, for example, setting boundaries, right? That has an impact on your relationships and how you feel. Or, you know, reflecting at the end of the week. Of course, when I reflect with the planner, I use it myself because I'm rubbish at, you know, just doing it on the fly. When I reflect in the planner, sometimes I, you know, reflect on how it's been with my child that week, and, you know, maybe the tension and resentment I feel when you know, it's, you know, you want to be a good mother, but also your child needs you and you're still meant to write another 10 pages. And so all of that comes into it. And really, I want the planner to be part of your life. And I will admit, just like you, I want to be honest, I have some pages in the planner from the last few weeks because it's undated, right? So you can use it anytime, that are really messy, where I'm writing extra goals in the margins. And the section where you slot in the time for your writing is overburdened with extra meetings and stuff. And I look at those pages and I see myself being almost in burnout, cluttering my mind and my schedule. And so when I saw that, I can feel it in my chest right now. It's getting very tense.
Yes.
I saw that visually on the page and I thought, hang on, stop. Something in your life is going slightly over the edge. Let's take a breath, remove all those goals, turn the page. Next week, I'm going to have a lot of white space, and I'm going to find a way to remove all that stuff. And so that has obviously an effect on how I go into the world and treat other people and, you know, enjoy myself in the process. Yeah, so absolutely, it has a spillover effect.
Yeah. So in that spillover effect, I think for me, it is very powerful to see it on the page, right? To see what a well-constructed week looks like that gives me space for what I want to do versus those weeks that are so overwhelming and we're trying to figure out, how to balance it. And moving into 2024, I know for me personally, I want to do more writing, both the reflective kind of personal kind. I want to keep my morning pages up in the morning, although I'm playing around with the format of them a little bit. I want to do a little bit more creative writing. And I don't mean writing creative fiction, but just allowing myself a little more creativity in my notebook, whether that's in what I write or how I write, or the stickers and the washi tape that I use to add to it to make me happy. But then I also do have some professional writing goals where I would love to keep doing that scary middle grade novel writing that I've been working on, and to continue some of the nonfiction work that I do. So I've got a lot of writing goals that are up in the air for different reasons. And I'm wondering if you have suggestions, because we are in the new year of 2024. How might we, for those that are interested, think about planning our writing lives in 2024 in a way that works and feels good and is doable?
Big question.
Yep.
It's the sort of golden ticket question, right?
There is.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we just think about the weekly steps, to make it very simple, because essentially week by week you need to recommit, you need to re-enter that space, you need to, you know, create the space. You don't just find the space, you need to make it. And so the simplest way to think about it, and by the way, you can also just do that without the planner, just in your journal. I have a 4-step process that I do with all my writers when we meet weekly and talk through their goals. The first thing is, don't give me a 20-point to-do list. I mean, you might have it somewhere and that's okay. But when you think about what would I be really proud of at the end of the week, give me your big 3.
Mm-hmm.
3 big things. And sometimes that 2 of them are writing related and the third one just is rest. And sometimes it's 3 different things, like keeping up my morning pages, 1 hour of writing on my novel, and then 1 hour of doodling. And if you can get that in, those big 3, either daily or on those days that are good for that, then you have achieved the absolute core, the absolute sort of non-essential. So prioritizing writing and prioritizing the right writing goals that will get you closer to your future self, that is always the first step. And the second step then is breaking it down. What does that actually mean? Because I can say I want to write a novel forever and I'm writing one, but if it's not broken down into mini steps, something like open the Word document, scroll down to page 15,
Right.
and, write out a scene of the character drinking coffee. If I don't give myself those cues, I'm going to just start my writing session and sit there and feel paralyzed because, oh yeah, I'm supposed to write my novel. And we all know that we should break goals down, but how often do we actually put it there for us later to see, right? So
Right.
that's step 2. And I do that on a Sunday. I plan out my whole week, knowing that some things might change. Step 3 is slotting it in. A list of goals, even if they are broken down, doesn't mean your calendar and your meetings and all of that on your family will allow you to do it. So it has to be slotted in the calendar.
Yeah.
I personally love to see it on my book. I use a fountain pen, and this is how I function. But if you put it in your Google Calendar or somewhere else, that's fine too. Just slot in the writing and call it either writing, or if your day job looks very different, call it meeting with X, and people are going to not touch that.
Oh,
So it has
I
to be
love
slotted in.
that.
Oh, me and my clients are being very cheeky about what we say in the calendar to protect the writing time fiercely. And
Oh,
then, right?
yes.
Yeah. And step 4 is track and reflect. So I need to continuously bring myself into the present moment, check in with myself and my body, and check in with, am I still happy with how I'm running the show, right? And so at the end of the week, I go to, it's minimal. You don't have to write 50 pages and do your inner therapy analysis if that's too much, but just 3 wins at the end of the week. What worked really well? Or if everything was awful, what did you learn from that? Because I've had so many doors close right in front of my face, or things just went completely off. But I did learn something. Like I learned my week is too full. I learned I need to put a sign on my door for the children to see, or whatever else. And that reflection will then influence how you're going to change your week next week. So it's extremely simple. 4 steps: prioritize big 3, break them down, slot them in, track and reflect at the end. But I find it so hard to do it. If there isn't someone like, tipping at my shoulder and say, do the 4 steps, I'm not going to do them. So this is why I need the planner is on my desk, like my little own writer's coach friend, and says, here, hello, please take your highlighters and your
Yes.
colors and whatnot and put it in. I'm here for you. So this is how it works for me and many of my clients.
And I would say many of our listeners as well, right? We all can have really great intentions, but it's in the carrying out of those intentions that is just difficult because life is busy. And I'm with you. I've actually had this on my, and I'm holding up those, can't see because you're listening. I'm holding up the planner, and I found if I didn't have it, for me, it's the kitchen counter. That's like my space that I see every day. It's next to the coffee pot. I've got, I had the Right Habit planner there. I had my other little notebooks. I had the book I'm going to read. We do need that reminder. And I love how, like you said, maybe we all can't have a writing coach for one reason or the other, but we can just have a planner that every time we look at it reminds us that we do have the power to create the kind of writing life, and therefore the kind of life that we want to have. And I'm totally going to put on my calendar meeting with Nicole on on it,
There
so
we
that we
go.
can carve out that time during the day. That is a wonderful hack that I am definitely going to steal.
Perfect.
Do that.
Yeah.
I think those steps, they're powerful yet very doable. And I love how you carve out some time on Sunday to think forward about the week. That's a practice that I've heard many people talk about, whether it's Sunday night or it's bright and early on Monday morning. There's just something about that time to yourself where you're not being pulled in another direction, and you just have those few minutes to set your intention for the week ahead. I need to do more of that. I tend to do that on the fly, right? It's always the multitasking. If I'm taking the walk, I'm thinking about it. If I'm, washing my hair, I'm thinking about what the day is like. But to give yourself the gift of 5 minutes, 10 minutes, pen to paper, so that you can remind yourself what matters, this planner really gives you that nice little gift to be able to give yourself that time.
Absolutely. And I love the way you framed it, because I don't want the planner to be something like, oh my God, I have to fill in the planner perfectly. And if I don't do it, I'm a slacker and I'm not a good writer and, I'm not doing it properly. It's not meant like that. My approach is very compassionate, and it's led from kindness and writing from a different space of openness and spaciousness. And I think this is why I wanted to make the planner pretty. It has like a blue feather on the cover to make it appealing. I want it to be an act of self-care, right? So if I put on a candle, on the best days, I put on a candle. I have a little owl candle that my daughter made at school, and I just put on, I tell people, let's just leave me be for 10 minutes. And I want to just set my intentions, as you just said. For me, that means I'm checking in with myself. I'm allowing the space to be just Nicole, not the mother, not the coach, not the writer or anything, just me, and think through how I want my week to look like and how I want to feel. And it really doesn't have to take that long. Sometimes I just fill in the 3 big goals and I don't do all the other steps because I'm a little frazzled, but I feel like at least I've done that one thing.
Yeah.
And then I feel good about myself. And it's just so nice when you start your work week, knowing that someone else, almost like your assistant, has planned it out for you. Yes, it was you, but now you pick it up and you just follow the plan. That just makes it so, so much easier to stay on track.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a gift that you can give your future self, right? To really think forward in that way. So you mentioned something about being perfect, right? The planners is not meant to be perfect. You don't have to fill it out in the same way, in the same space. It's okay if you don't come to it every day. That perfection, I'm sure as a writing coach, holds so many of us back, right? And what I have found in my community, and we actually joke about it often, is that even the act of buying a new notebook, a new planner, a new calendar, whatever the thing is, that even can overwhelm us. And so many of us, myself included, have stacks of beautiful notebooks and beautiful planners and beautiful things that we are afraid to start because of a variety of reasons, whether, we didn't write in it the right way. We didn't write enough. We skipped a day and, oh my gosh, I can't come back to it now. Or what if I don't fill up the whole page and that's what I'm supposed to do? The act of starting a new notebook, as fun as it sounds, can be overwhelming. And I would love for you to talk about how you help your clients kind of work through that new notebook phenomenon. And I know one of your pieces of advice is to just make it messy, which is so hard for so many of us. So could you give us your best recommendations for kicking off 2024 with a new notebook and actually opening it?
Yeah. I'm the same way. And the only reason why I actually started my own planner and didn't just put it on the shelf in a pretty way is because I felt like if I tell people to use it, I better do it. I, it's undated. So that's number one.
Yeah.
If you skip a week for some reason, you can return to it. You can, at any point in the year, fill in your future self vision. At any point in the year, you can make a monthly plan, or you jump right to the week. If you're blocked, there's a section for writer's block. You go right there. So there are a lot of entry points, and there's never a day lost, because it doesn't matter if you take it this year and then for some reason, half a year later, that'll be the first time you start using it. So this is number one. I wanted it to be low key. The other thing is, it's soft cover on purpose. So it's not a pretty hardcover sort of thing that looks magical on it's meant to be opened, right? It's sort of 8 by 10 inch, and it's meant to be sitting. So the first thing I do, I open it, I fiddle around it with my hand, and I lay it flat. And you need to really push down the pages, which when you're a book lover, you don't lay it flat. Like, you hold it gently, just slightly open it. No, this planner, you lay it flat, you take your fist and sort of like smooth it out. And then you just take any pen. And if you don't want to write the goal yet, you feel like, oh, it's not going to be the perfect goal, see it as, oh, this is going to be my dummy tryout page. So just put some fake goals in there, you know? I personally use highlighters and stickers and things. So I made one page that has only stickers to start with, and I just highlighted all the boxes to just see how that would look like. And I knew that later I would fill that in. Luckily, you can always just, if you think it doesn't look pretty, you turn the damn page. There are 52 weeks in there, right? So 52 chances to get to the perfect and beautiful way. And, you know, as with writing, you need to take small steps, and it won't be perfect the first time round. So it's almost like the same analogy, you know, allow yourself a shitty first filled in calendar page. Next week, it'll look pretty. I'll just hold this up. I know that listeners can't see it, but you'll see a lot of colors, a lot of arrows back and forth and written in the margins, and it looks really ugly. But I needed to see that ugly page and live through that week of being annoyed with myself to then turn the page and have a very light page with hardly anything written and, you know, slightly looking better. I also will say the more messy it looks, or the more, you know, handwriting isn't pretty and whatever, it shows that you are living the writing life. If your focus is on making your planner look pretty, you are focusing on the wrong thing. You're probably procrastinating, because if you are a writer and you want to get to your morning pages and you want to get to the novel and, you know, use your fingers on the keyboard, you can't spend all that time on the planner making it pretty. You know, it just has to be a bit messy, and it's a sign that you're doing it right. So if it looks ugly or messy, it's a sign you are a professional writer who doesn't have so much time to make this look pretty. You're just moving on, right?
Yeah, I love how you said that, because really this planner is a tool to get us to the kind of writing that we want to have. And so we don't want the tool to be the best part. We want the writing, whether it's in our private notebook or out for the world, to be the thing that we share. And no one has to see this other than us. So it can be whatever we want and need it to be.
Yeah. And, you know, I share how I'm using the planner on Instagram. Like, I take pictures on how ugly it looks sometimes, just because I want people to see that even my own planner doesn't look perfect. And it would be really awful to know that a lot of people either aren't using it, or they are procrastinating by planning, because I'm very good at that. Oh, I can
Me
plan the
too.
hell out of my novel. And am I sitting down to write? Right. So yeah, you are exactly right. It's a tool, and it's meant to be just a stepping stone to then go and do that writing that you want to do.
Yeah. And I know some people are probably thinking, because, you know, of that perfection, that this is January and January already started, right? I can't start a writing planner like this now, but as you mentioned, it's undated. You can start it at any time. I just started mine at the very end of November, right? Which some people would think, oh my goodness, why would you do that? That's the end of the year, but it's not a calendar year planner. It's just a year of your life. Like, from this moment forward, these are the next goals. And I'm hoping that people see that undatedness as an invitation to do it at any time, whether it's January, you know, when we're talking about it now, or November, which is when I happen to start it. And the best part is that anything that you add to it is going to move you forward. But if you let that stop you of starting that notebook at the perfect time in the perfect way, then, you know, there's no progress to be made. So I really liked that undated version to personalize it and make it my own.
Yeah. That's exactly why I did that, because I will say I scratched my head on how to design this planner, because the issue is, when you are a writer's coach, you have seen a million different tools working for a million different people, and visually working for, again, right? Some people like boxes, other people like doodling, and it is very hard to bring it to something that is like a common denominator for everyone. And now I forgot why I started to say that, but Yes, the undated. So I did think about doing a dated version just to sort of, marketing wise, it makes sense. Oh yeah, it's January. Now go buy your planner, or
Yeah.
even December. But then again, I felt, what about all the writers throughout the year? In July, they decide, I want to get back on track. And then this planner, half of it has to be thrown out. There's just no point. You are a writer every single day in your life, even if you're not writing for a period of time. And every single day in your life, you have the chance and permission to start again, to restart, to start fresh, whatever it is. And so I wanted it to be something that on that day, you will pick that thing up with the blue feather on it, and you just put in a word and then another word, just like writing is, right? And then
Yeah.
you're on a roll. Yeah.
And it all strings together. Now it does come if we've been talking about the bulk of the planner, which is, the goals, the monthly goals, the weekly overview, the slots, but there are more tools for the writer in here, right? You have more prompts to help us think about our mindset, our goals, our writer's block, the things that might get in our way. And it also comes with, I want to mention, a free course, right? To kind of go alongside of this. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know some people will feel that that's quite appealing to not only have the planner, but basically to have your coaching from afar as part of it.
Yeah. So I snuck that in. I meant to really write a planner. A lot of people told me, just do the planner. People just need that thing. Don't make it into a coaching thing. Just because you're a coach, not everything has to be about coaching. But I just couldn't help myself, because I know that probably somewhere throughout the planner you will run into writer's block, or you might have too many goals, or you might lose track of how you want your habit system to look like. And for those moments, I didn't just want people to feel like, oh no, now I failed at everything. I wanted to give them something. And so there's a handful of my absolute favorite writing tools in there. It's called the Writer's Toolbox. It's all the way at the back. And the idea was to give people an entryway into self-coaching with a very short video that, the QR code is in the planner. So you just, scan that, sign in, and you've got all the videos there. And so you have a page that you can use, for example, to build your own flow ritual, something you do every time before you start writing to train your brain. You can fill that in on the page, and you can watch the video, which will tell you in which situations people have used it, with like a million different examples and filled in versions. So you can see graphically what has worked for others, so that it's almost like this is what I do with my clients. We are sitting almost together, filling that in, and then deciding, okay, for 1 week, you're going to do that ritual. Yeah, I'm sneaking in some goodies there, because I know that it's not always easy.
Yeah. And I'm glad you snuck them in, because I'm not from the camp that says it's only a planner, because I feel like a planner is a coaching tool. And when there are extra goodies like that I know are going to help me use it and stick with it and apply it, I really appreciate that. And I think the flow ritual was my favorite, because in just the way that I work, and I'm sure a lot of people are the same, it's hard for me to let go. It's hard for me to block out things. It's hard for me to do things that are just for me without that ticker tape of the to-do list in the back of my mind. But there's something about really thinking about what's the opposite of a trigger? What could the trigger to relaxation, the trigger to writing. I know there's a better word I should be using, but
Maybe
I
cue, like a
cues.
cue for writing.
Yeah, there's something about lighting that candle that sits on my desk that is a signal to my system that, oh, hey, by the way, we're going to do this now. And so you can just push that to-do list to the side, or those 2 deep breaths, before I put the pencil to the paper, or just those little things that I didn't realize mattered so much until I started doing them consistently. And I felt like kind of that Pavlovian response, right? That, oh, that means I get to do this. And that shift from, oh, I've got to sit down and write, or I'm going to be a failure because I said I wanted to write in my notebook, to you get to have this time. And that is a signal to remind you that you deserve it. I loved that ritual focus. That was a really important one for me. And I think for a lot of busy people, who need that physical body signal that it's okay to do this.
Yeah. And it comes directly from research about habit formation and how to get into flow. And I'm doing the same thing. So when I am starting to write, I have a hot cup of either coffee or just heated water because I love having that running down my throat. I can feel it in my body. Makes me feel relaxed, which is a nice way to write from. And I have my noise canceling headphones, which feel so soft on my ears, and a playlist on Spotify with binaural beats, just sort of like focus music. And I have now trained my brain to expect flow when I do those things.
Yeah.
And on those days when I feel like I really don't want to write, I tell myself, well, what was the first thing on your flow ritual? Oh, just make yourself a cup of coffee and then or whatever the drink is. And then you just take it over to the desk. It's a tiny thing. Just make some hot drink, take it to the desk, put it down. And then my headphones are lying right there. Oh, I don't have to do anything, nothing about, oh, I need to write this novel. I'll just put on the headphones and put on the music. That's just another teeny tiny step. So I'm luring myself, right?
Yes.
Because this is very easily getting into that. It's like when you lay out your gym clothes at the end of the day. So in the morning, you just put them on and go,
Yes.
right? And I will say now that with these headphones, when I try to watch Netflix or something, I put those headphones on, everything in my body says, no, this is wrong. So I have different headphones, just earbuds, when I want to watch something for just, fun or
Yeah.
not writing. So my brain is now very firm on if those headphones are on my ears, you better be writing, Nicole.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I haven't tried. I've talked to a lot of people who really find those helpful to get them in that nice quiet space. And I think that has to be the next thing that I try, right? To keep the mind quiet and focused on what I want it to focus on. Well, the planner gives us so many opportunities to reflect on who we want to be, the kind of writer we want to be, how do we get there? And then just that very nice little accountability partner that very gently reminds us what we wanted to do over the course of the week and how we could get there. And I think it's just such a wonderful tool, as I said, to spark your writing life, but then spill over into your actual life too. So I'm so grateful that I have mine here, and I'm hoping that listeners will be intrigued and be interested and want to see how this could help their writing life as well. So I'm hoping you can tell everyone where they can find you. Maybe it's social media, your website, and the best place for them to get the planner for themselves.
Absolutely. And thank you for saying that. I love that. Um, Where can listeners find the planner? There's a website called thewritehabitplanner.com where there's a little video showing you what's inside, and it leads to the Amazon page of your country. So amazon.com or wherever, you can go there directly too. Just look for Write Habit, and write written like the writer. Write Habit Nicole Janz, Janz like zebra, and you will get directly there. And I'm also on Instagram under Janz is Writing. I could have come up with a better name, but that's what it is. Janz is Writing, and on LinkedIn,
Perfect.
on all the socials, actually. So the writehabitplanner.com is probably the fastest way to find it, because Amazon sometimes tends to hide really useful things that people want to find.
It sure does. Those darn algorithms don't always prioritize what we want them to prioritize. Okay, I will be sure to put those links into the show notes, to the website and to the social channels as well, so that everyone can not only take a look at the planner, but I know I love just scrolling through, and as you mentioned on your social media, you put examples of what it could look like. And just seeing that in a social feed can be the spark of accountability I need to get my own out. So that is always appreciated too.
Yeah, absolutely. Same. I'm very much a sort of template person or mirror person. Like if I see a filled in template, I'm going to do it. If I want to write a certain scene, I open a book and feel like, oh, that's how they do it. I'm going to twist it and turn it into mine. I need that mirror, like that, that page on my desk that has something filled in, and then I see it, and it makes me feel like, yes, I can now position myself in relation to this. And so, yeah, templates, examples, they are, plus I can geek out on that forever. Which pens are the best ones? And I've done a trial, what pens are the best ones.
Oh, we could
There's
have
so
a
much
whole
fun to be
episode
had
on
as
that.
well. Yep.
Yes, you're speaking my language. That's my love language is notebooks and pens. So that is wonderful.
Same.
Well,
Stationary kink.
yes. Well, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast today, not only to talk about your planner, but just about the possibility for making writing a more enjoyable, creative space in our lives, something I know that a lot of listeners will appreciate. I enjoyed chatting with you. I'm going to keep my write habit going in my planner, and I'll have to check in with you later so that you can keep track of how I'm doing too.
Yeah, we should do that. And, if at the end of the day you tell me that the planner helped you to create some space, trust in yourself, all these things we need, trust that your story matters, trust that your voice matters, even if it's being read or if it's not being read, it matters that you are creating something. If you tell me that this is what the planner gave you, then I'll just be the happiest person in the world.
Oh, what a beautiful way to end. Oh, thank you so much. I enjoyed chatting with you. Thanks for
Same
listening.
here. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thanks for listening, everyone. I'll see you inside the next episode. And until then, go write something. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Get Literate podcast. You'll find links to all the books, resources, and ideas mentioned in the show notes and at alitlife.com. Plus, if you want more, you might like to join my Patreon community. There, you'll find additional inspiration for your reading and writing life, like bonus podcast episodes, bibliotherapy book calendars, monthly book clubs, notebooking challenges, live events, giveaways, and much, much more. It's only $5 a month, and you get instant access to all of the previous content too. You can learn more at getliterate.co. And one more thing. If you love what you listened to today, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast or take a screenshot of the episode and text it to a friend. This helps the podcast grow and builds our bookish and notebookish community too. Thanks for listening.